So before we start, just to give you an overview of what we're going to cover today, we're going to learn how to use Blackboard to effectively communicate with students by covering these tools here: announcements, discussion boards, the email function in Blackboard, messages, blogs, journals, and wikis. We used to cover Blackboard Collaborate in this session, but because that's such a detailed tool that we're not going to cover it today. If you're interested in that, you can send us a follow-up email and we'll be happy to cover that in a separate session. But we'll leave that off for today. And then secondly, in this session, we'll talk about how to deliver instructional materials. So building content and then how to set up adaptive release. In the follow-up session on Thursday from 10 to 12, that'll also be online, Marcia will be covering how to assess student learning. So she'll cover how to create assignments in Blackboard, how to create tests, surveys, and pools. She'll cover rubrics, and then she'll dive into the Grade Center, where you can manage student grades. All right. So that's kind of the roadmap for today and Thursday. And with that, I will go ahead and start. So as I said earlier, my name is Taylor. You can email me here at tmfail.uh.edu, or feel free to contact me by phone. Our office is located in the Classroom and Business Building, which is the CBB building, on the second floor in Suite 204. And we're usually open from I would say 7:30 to 5:30 is a good time to catch us. And then below that is Marcia's contact information as well, if you have a follow-up question for her. And secondly, before we jump into the content of this bootcamp, I want to discuss really quickly some resources that are here for your benefit. So the first one is a site that we have running called Instruction at UH, if you haven't heard of it. Basically, this is a WordPress site / blog that we host. And it's created and maintained by UH instructional designers across the campus. So we have over here some blog posts from everything from how to design accessible course materials, different kinds of tools you can use in your teaching, and things like that. But what I wanted to point you to, especially for today, is this knowledge base area. So here we have hundreds of articles of tutorials on all kinds of educational technology, but mainly Blackboard, right? So if there's anything that I didn't cover today that you want to follow up on, this is a good place to check that out, right? So, just for instance, if you click on this category, Blackboard Getting Started, it'll go over how to request a course to, what does the navigation look like? And each tutorial has both text instructions as well as images or screenshots that kind of walk you through how to do, some kind of function in Blackboard. Some of them are also videos. So let's see this one. So here's a good example, right? So how to add files and folders to a course. You have the text instructions, and then you have some screenshots that follow the text instructions, right? So that'll help you get acclimated if there's anything that we didn't cover today. The second resource is one that's available from Blackboard itself. So you have all these different categories down here, right? How to get started, interacting with students, assignments, and they have a bunch of additional kind of like knowledge base articles there that are similar to ours. Okay, so that's available to you as well. And then the last thing is the Blackboard help website. Whoops, that's not good. I'll have to redo that link. Okay, that's unfortunate. But we do have a 24-hour help desk with Blackboard. And you can navigate to there, and you can either set up a phone call or do a live chat so that the support person can help you with your issue. But please note that that service is outsourced, so it's not run by any UH staff. It's run by Blackboard itself. So if there's something that they can't handle, they'll have to escalate it to our team, and then we can help you in a more detailed way. So those are just some resources that I wanted to mention before we get started with the content of the bootcamp. All right. So this bootcamp doesn't assume any prior knowledge of Blackboard. So I'm going to first talk about the left-hand navigation. So as an instructor, when you log into Blackboard, you will see this left-hand navigation here, and it'll look very different than this because you won't have a lot of content built already. But there's two basic sections, right? There's a section up here above this little gray line, and this is the section that is your actual course and which students can access, right? Everything below this gray line is only available to instructors and teaching assistants or graders. Okay, so I want to talk about this really quickly. So the first thing you have here is your content collection. And this first link right here is the content collection for your course specifically. So this area is where you can upload any files or documents that you want in your course. You know, they can be Word documents, PowerPoints, PDFs, images, videos, audio files, anything. So that's where these documents are going to live whenever you upload them to your course. And you can create folders here to help you organize your content, but this is the place where all that stuff lives. Secondly, and probably the most used area is the course tools area. So any tool that's available to you as an instructor in Blackboard can be accessed in this course tools area. So you can see here you have an announcements tool, a blogs tool, you even have publisher content here, you know, McGraw-Hill, Cengage. You also have your tests area, Turnitin assignments, right? So this is where all of your tools live. So you'll probably want to, if you haven't used Blackboard before, you probably want to familiarize yourself with that area. Evaluation is where you can run reports, which will allow you to see student activity. The Grade Center is just what it says. It's where you'll find your students' grades in kind of a spreadsheet type area. Users and groups is where you will manage, if you want to set up any groups in your course, you can manage that here, as well as see all the users that are currently enrolled in your course. And you can see their role over here, student, instructor. Sometimes you'll have a TA role, that kind of thing. The customization area is where you can, under teaching style, upload a course banner, which is like a little image at the top of the homepage of your course that kind of, you know, shows the students where they are. You can also designate which course is the homepage, so like the landing page when students enter. So right now I have the homepage as the announcements page, but I can select any area that I want for students to land on when they enter the course. So that's where you change that. And then there's also a area here where you can adjust the menu style. Right? You can change the colors of the text for this menu over here. But the other thing over here under customization that's important is the tool availability. And this gives you a list of all the tools in Blackboard, and you can turn these on and off if you want. So for instance, say you want to turn the email tool off, you would just click here, and when that's unchecked, students don't have access to that tool. So we'll go ahead and cancel that. I'll skip packages and utilities because that's not really used. But the last thing I want to point you to here is the help section. So again, this takes you to that, that page that I showed you earlier. It's just nice and handy for you there. You can contact the support center there through email, and then you can also view some video tutorials from Blackboard. So that's a very basic overview of the course management area. Are there any questions about that before we move on? Let me pull up the chat here.
Seems good. Thanks, Taylor.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'm not able to see the chat.
Don't worry. The only question that we have right now is how can you make a banner
Gotcha.
for the course?
Yeah, so you can't make a banner inside Blackboard itself. You would have to create that in some kind of editing software. A lot of people use Microsoft PowerPoint to create a banner image and then export it as a JPEG and then upload it to Blackboard. You can also use, I mean, there's tons of tools out there to create, you know, images. Photoshop is one. You can use, you know, Paint or what is it on Windows? I mean, on Mac is I forget the application, but anyways, you would have to create that image yourself and then upload it to Blackboard in the customization teaching style area, right? So I don't think I have one created right now, but that's where you do this. You browse your computer and I mean, let me see if I can. I don't know if I have any here. I don't know what this is, but we'll try it. It might look kind of funky because it's probably not formatted correctly. Yeah, so if I uploaded that image, that's what it would look like, right? But most banners are kind of very short and wide. But that's what it would look like there. So I'll take that off. Okay, so
Taylor, could I ask a question about the
absolutely.
content above course management?
Sure, yes. Sorry, you muted yourself.
Sure, if you were going to get to that next, so I don't want to jump out of order here.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to talk next about how to add navigation links to this area.
Okay.
And how to customize it according to.
Okay. I'll hold on to my question then until you're into that. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, perfect. No problem. Okay, so so let's next move up to the course navigation menu, and you can see here I have this organized in a way that I personally like. So I have a welcome message here, and then you know, there's just some links here, different sections, right? But let's say this customizing Blackboard area isn't where I want it to be. So what I would do is go over here and turn the edit mode to on. And now you'll notice whenever you hover over these links, you'll see that they get highlighted and there's this up and down arrow. And then you can move this to a different area, right? So I want this to be under topics, right? So that's how you would rearrange the links in your navigation area. To add a link, you would just come up here to the top left-hand corner and click the plus button or hover over it. And you can add a content area, which is just kind of like a folder where you can put different content items in there. You can add a module page, which is kind of like a dashboard area for your students. And I'll show you what that looks like later. A blank page is just simply that, a blank HTML page that you can customize however you want. That's what this is. This welcome page is just a blank page. A tool link is any of those tools that I showed you earlier under course management. You can add a tool link to the navigation menu as well. You can add a web link to a different website outside of Blackboard. You can add a course link to a specific area within your Blackboard course. And then you can add subheaders and dividers. So let's go through each one of these areas real quick. So first I'm going to do a content area, and I'm going to name this example content area 2, because I already have one. You can leave this unchecked if you're still creating this and you don't want your students to see it just yet. So, but for the purposes of our demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and make this available. Anytime you create a new link, it's going to put it at the bottom of your menu. Okay. So you'll notice also that there is a little gray, let me blow this up a little bit. Sorry. See that little gray box with the dotted line inside it? That means that this link has no content, right? So it's basically telling you that you need to add content to this area. So when I go here, this is what this example content area looks like. So from there, you can add further content within this area. And then, like I said earlier, you can drag this around to wherever you want it to live on your navigation menu. So next I'll do a tool link. So when you click tool link, you can see there's a drop down here for all the tools within Blackboard that you can add to the menu area. Right, so let's say I wanted to create a tool link for the journal. So I can select journal, and then I can give it a name. I'll call it my journal, and I'll make it available, and then I'll click submit. So now when a student clicks on this, they will be taken to the journal tool, and that's what that looks like. Announcements is one of the more common tool areas, or tool links. So I've already placed a link there to announcements area. Discussion board is also pretty common, so you can add a link to your discussion board, right? So any other tool that you wanted to place there for students to have easy access to can be done. I know calendar is pretty common. Groups is pretty common. Right. There's also a tool for tools area. So we'll add that real quick. And I'll show you what that looks like. So I'm adding the link to the tools area. When I click this, this gives the student a view of all the tools that are available to him or her in the course. But as the instructor, you can kind of customize this tools page however you want. So next to each tool, there's a show and hide link button, right? So this is a lot of tools that might be kind of confusing for students. So what I like to do is just take out all the tools that I'm not going to use. So looks like I've hidden a lot already. Right? So to see what this looks like as a student, just turn the edit mode off. And then you can see these are only the tools that they'll see whenever they come to this page. So it's a nice kind of way for them to access a bunch of tools like their grades, for instance. or their calendar, or collaborate, or whatever they need to get to. So the last thing I wanted to show you on the navigation menu is dividers and subheaders. So this line here is a divider. So if you wanted to separate your sections here, you can add those. You do that the same way, click the plus button and then select divider. And again, it'll throw it at the bottom, and then you just have to move it around to where you want it to be. So I'll delete this menu item. And then the last thing is subheaders. And these are just non-linked text. So I've added some already, but this is what it looks like, right? So I have a subsection here, and that's what it looks like.
Taylor, a little while ago, you kind of zoomed to show us one or two buttons there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something you're doing in Blackboard, or is that your operating system for your computer?
Oh, that's just my browser.
Okay.
Most browsers have the shortcut, which is Control plus, and you can just zoom in. On a Mac, it's Command plus. And then if you're zoomed in and you hit Command 0, it'll bring you back to the 100%. I'm in Chrome right now, but it should be available in whatever browser you need. I think in Chrome, it's also, if you zoom in, it pops up right here as well. So any questions then about the course menu and navigation? Okay. So let's move on to customizing. Let's see, what have we done? We've done, I showed you how to edit the course menu, how to add tools to the course menu, adding content areas, and changing tool availability. So I think we've done a lot of this. Now let's talk about how to add content to a content area. So let's say we've come here, we've added a content area, and we've called it example content area. So this is where a lot of faculty put their course modules, right? So you can imagine in a course you might have 15 modules here set up as, course content folders. So anytime you want to add content to a content area, you're going to see this gray bar at the top. So you can either add static content here, which is like documents, items, blank pages, audio, video, images, web links, anything like that. You can also add assessments. So you can add tests, surveys, assignments, and then third-party assessments like McGraw-Hill or Turnitin assignments. You can also add tool links here, just like we added a tool link over here in the navigation menu. You can add a tool link to this content area. So let's say I wanted to link here to a blog. I could come in here, create a link to the blog, and select that and give it a description. and you'll notice whenever you create any item in Blackboard, whether it's a content item, an assessment, or a tool, you'll get a page that looks very similar to this. Some of them have different options, but each one will have the ability to make it available or not available to students. You'll be able to track number of views for this item, and then you can restrict it based on date. So that's a standard global option for any kind of content you add. So when I click submit, you'll notice that at the bottom, there will be a link to this course blog that students can now get to. So if I click on that, it'll bring up the blog, which has no entries, but that's what it would look like. So I've created an example course introduction area. So, if you thought of this content area as where I'm going to put all of my course modules, you can see here is a course introduction. Whenever I create modules for my course or when I'm helping faculty, I think it's always great to begin each module with the outcomes or objectives that they're going to get out of the module, and then give them a kind of task list. So what are the things in the modules? What are the activities that a student has to do or complete within the module? So this is just an example from another course I taught. And then here is a link to a course syllabus, right? So this is also an example from my course. I have it set up as a Google Doc, and this would be an example of an external link, right? So, that's what I added there. So I went to build content and then web link. I gave it a name, and then I just copied and pasted that Google document link. Also, anytime you see this dotted black line, you can drag and drop documents from your computer and attach them to that content that you're creating online. So, let's see. Other things you can add here. You can add an item. An item is just a bit of passive content that is displayed within the content area itself, right? So if I were to add, let's say, I wanted to add an image here. Let's say I want to add that image. And some text here, just to show you what it looks like, if I can type. When I click submit, that content that I just placed there will be available to students from the module. I mean, from the content area, right? So that's what an item looks like. Now that's very different than what a blank page looks like. So let's now make a blank page, and I'll give it a title. And I'm going to put the exact same content here as I did earlier. And I'm going to click submit. So you can see the item will display the content within the content area. For the blank page, you need to click in to see that content. So if I turn the edit mode off, it looks the exact same, but it's just sort of laid out differently within the content area, if that makes sense.
Taylor, can we back up just a little bit? We had one question
Absolutely.
about blogs.
Okay.
They wanted to inquire about collaborative blogs, and then if all students can be on that particular blog.
Okay, yes, great question. The answer is yes. You can have a collaborative blog, and we'll cover that in the next section on communication tools. But yeah, certainly a blog can be either individual for the student, collaborative across the whole course, or you can have a blog that's broken down into groups. So only groups can contribute to it. Only members of groups can contribute to that blog.
So, Taylor, I created a Blackboard for next semester, and in doing so requested that the format for the previous semester be used. When I do go into it now, the content shows all the weeks from last semester, so January through April, May. Do I have to do something to have that corrected and changed, or is that going to be done, updated automatically?
You mean the titles for the content is it says January or February, or are you
Right.
talking about the availability dates?
The titles are all there. They all seem to be available. Let me
Yeah,
click on.
so anytime you copy content over from a previous semester, it's not going to change at all. You know, Blackboard doesn't know how you want to change things. So
Mhm.
it's just going to leave them how it was. And so it's up to you to go in and make any updates you want.
Okay.
So let's say if I go back here, let's say instead of module 1, this said January 19th through 25th. Okay. In order to change that, I would have to click this drop down. And by the way, while we're on it, this drop down is incredibly important. This is going to be all over Blackboard. So anytime you want to change anything to an existing piece of content, you're going to select that drop down and select edit. Okay. So when you do that, you'll have to change the name to that content folder here, or whatever piece of content it is. So if I change this and I call it module 1 updated, and then click submit, that's how that works.
Mhm.
See here, it's reflected there. Now that's different than the availability dates, right? So if I wanted to, if in the previous semester I had restricted the availability dates for any item in Blackboard, when you copy the course, it's also going to retain that availability date. So you'd have to go in and change those restrictions manually, right? And I think that's a different task than what you were asking about, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention in case you or another instructor had set these up previously.
Can you do some of those changes globally? For example, the availability. Do you have to click on each item
Yeah,
and change them? Or?
so there is under the tools area a date management tool. I will hold off on this until the end because this is a pretty unintuitive tool to use. But we can, if we have time at the end, I can go over that, and if not, then we can follow up after this.
Okay.
Okay, great. But good questions. Let's see, where was I? Okay. So let's see here. Example module page. This, remember I said that there is a thing called a module page. So if I come to this content area, I can do build content module page. And I just kind of wanted to show you what that looks like. So these little boxes with the gray bar on top are called modules, right? And so Blackboard has these built-in modules, which can be kind of nice if you use the tools within Blackboard that have a module. So for instance, if you're a heavy announcement user and a heavy user of course messages, then it might be nice to create a module page for your students so they can have all those messages in one place. All right, they can also have some alerts, like if they have a due date coming up, then they can see that here. And then students, you can also add modules, right? Like let's say I wanted to add, where is it? My Blackboard, help and support. I thought there was a email one. But anyways, you can add any of these modules to that. So like, let's say needs attention, you want that one on there. So when you go back to the module page, you can see that needs attention area is there. And you can also move these around however you want. So if you want that one at the top, you can move it. And if you want that one over there, you can move it. And then, you know, the student can also customize that page however they want. So that's what a module page is. which is not to be confused with what is called a learning module. So a learning module is similar to a content area, but instead of this is a content area, and so the items within it are just kind of free form. A learning module is a structured, organized release of content. So you can see here in a learning module, you have the ability to enforce sequential viewing, which means that you're only going to allow students to walk through the module in a certain predetermined way, right? They have to see content A before they can see content B. So we can set up a quick learning module here, and you can see this is the icon for the learning module. And so if I build content, I'll just build some items real quick. So I'll just create that, and then I'll just create 3 learning module items, and then you guys can see what it kind of looks like. Okay, so let's just assume that this was, a really rigorous set of concepts or principles here that were being taught. You can see here in the learning module, you have the table of contents and then your learning module. But when I turn the edit mode off, the students will have to go through each item sequentially, right? So they won't be able to get to item number 2 until they've looked at the first item. Right? So that's how that works. So this is the layout for the learning module, which is different than this content area. Right? So some instructors choose to use content areas as a way to structure their learning modules. Some people use the learning module tool to structure them. It's kind of up to your preference. So Rita, I noticed you asked what's the difference between announcements and messages. And we're going to get to that. That's a very important question. So just hang on to that for now. Okay, so any questions about basic ways of adding content to your course? We can spend more time on each one of these content types, but largely they work the same way, right? You just select build content, choose one, and then customize it however you like. We good there? Okay, great. So next we're going to talk about how to communicate with students with Blackboard tools. So basically I've divided this section up into 3 parts. The first part is instructor to student. And these are, ways that you can communicate with your students either on a group level, so you can send them messages as a group, or on an individual level. And you can do that both within Blackboard and outside Blackboard, right? The second communication section is what I call collaboration and interaction. And these are tools within Blackboard that aren't built necessarily for you to communicate with students as an instructor, but for students to kind of generate their own content within the platform. And this can happen with discussion boards, blogs, journals, or wikis. So we'll cover all those. And then the last piece, which I mentioned earlier, we're not really going to spend a lot of time on, is Blackboard Collaborate, which is a synchronous tool to have live video conferences with your students. Okay. So can you add prerequisites and requirements? So Jim, that's a great question. You can do this. You have to use a different tool. So the question is, in a learning module, can I require that a student makes, for example, 80% or above on a quiz in order to proceed through the learning module? And the answer is yes, but you would have to add what's called an adaptive release to the content you want to restrict until they meet that 80% threshold. And so that's not built into the learning module, but it is built into each kind of content. And I will cover that certainly and after we cover the communication tools. So if I forget, please remind me. Okay, so let's start with instructor to student communication tools. So first we'll talk about messages. I'll turn this off so you can kind of see this. So course messages are private and secure text-based communication that occurs within the course between course members. So the way I like to describe course messages is it's a email system that is totally internal to Blackboard. And actually it's totally internal to a Blackboard course. So anytime you use course messages, you're not going to get an email to your personal inbox outside of Blackboard. And the student won't either. So they have to be in Blackboard environment to receive a message and to send a message. Okay, so a lot of instructors like this because, for example, they don't want to get bombarded by student emails outside of Blackboard to their own personal accounts. And also, they want students to go to the Blackboard course because that's where all the learning happens. So you want them to be there as much as possible. So those are the main reasons why you would use messages to communicate with your students. And messages looks like a very simplified email client. It just happens to be within Blackboard, right? So I have a little screenshot here to get to messages. You would go to Course Tools, select Course Messages, and then to create a message, you would just click the Create Message button. You can also create folders to store messages just like you can in, say, Microsoft Outlook. But let's just dive into the tool real quick to see what it looks like. All right, so here you have the course messages tool. And if I wanted to send a message, it looks just like an email client. So here are all my users in the course, whether they're instructors, students, TAs, co-instructors, whatever. So I can come in here and select, I'm gonna select Marcia and add her as a recipient. I can also add all if I wanted to send a large message to all the students. And then, just like an email, I will give this a subject line and add some body text. And then submit. So now you can see in my sent box, I have one message that was sent, and I can open it up, see what it looks like. This is what it looks like. I can forward it. I can move it to a different folder. I only have one folder set up, so I can only move it there. But now it'll be here, right? So, like I said, it's pretty simplified, but
Taylor, is this also available through the mobile app?
That's a good question. I believe so. Marcia, can you confirm that for us? Let me see. I have to say I'm not a heavy user of of the mobile app.
Okay, can she repeat the question for me, please?
Yeah, the question is messages available in the mobile app?
It's not functioning correctly, but it is there. Let me double check. Hang on one second.
Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm quite positive if you sent a message to a student, they would get a notification for it. I'm not sure like how built out the messages tool is within the mobile app. You know, because in the mobile app, there's a lot of things that are available, but when you click on them, they take you to the regular course page. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So like if you have a content area, for instance, in Blackboard, and it's not formatted for mobile, when a student clicks on it, they'll open up in the mobile app a website that looks just like the Blackboard page. So I just don't know if they've built that out in a mobile format, but it's a great question, and it would certainly be an excellent thing for them to build out if they haven't done so already.
Thanks.
Yeah. So that's course messages. Like I said, pretty simplified. And again, the reasons for using this are you want all your communications with students to live within Blackboard. And you want students to go to Blackboard as much as possible so they can have more contact with the course materials.
I'm trying to find that, Taylor, under my course, and I'm not quite finding it.
Okay, so
Is it possible it has a different name?
That's a great question, right? So so you have to make that tool available in your course, right? So if I request a course and just a default template that's given to me, course messages aren't going to show up here, right? So I have to add that. And there's two ways I can add that. One is I can just give students access to this tools area. And you'll see course messages is right there.
Yeah, see that I don't see it. That's why I have a few things here, but I don't see under.
So it might be that you've turned that off, that you've hidden that link. So if we go to edit mode and turn that on, and like, let's say I click hide link, and then I turn edit mode off, course messages is gone.
No, I don't have it, but I do see one that says send email.
That's a different tool. We're going to cover that in a second.
Yeah, see, I don't have it. I have an edit mode is on.
Okay, and you don't see course messages.
No, I have contacts, content, course portfolios, course reserves, and then I go to D.
Okay, so that means that it's been turned off in another area. So this is a little bit of an aside, but I think it's important for us to cover. So I'll go ahead and cover it now. So there's another place where you can turn off tools that I mentioned earlier, which is under tool availability. So under course management, customization, tool availability. If you click here, you can see all the tools in Blackboard, and course messages is right here. So likely that box is unticked for you.
Okay.
And if you select it and then click submit, then it should show up in your tools area.
Okay, got it.
And if not, then there's some glitch happening that I'm not aware of.
No, that was it. Thanks.
Okay, cool. So what I know a lot of faculty do is if they use the messages function, they don't want their students to have to go here every time they want to send a message. So they do something like this. They come here and they add a tool length and they say email Professor Fail, let's say. And they select course messages, make it available, and then so now if they want to contact you, they click here, email Professor Fail, and then they go create message. right? And then they select to Taylor, and then they send you an email or a message. Right? And so when you log into Blackboard, you will be notified that you've gotten a new message from a student. So I kind of like to make the tools that I'm going to use a lot in the course available for students on the main navigation window, area. Okay. All right, so that is messages. So remember, messages are internal to Blackboard. They don't send you an email outside to your personal client. Email is the opposite, right? So email doesn't keep anything inside Blackboard and only sends stuff out, sends messages out to your personal email, right? That's why I have this warning here. Blackboard Learn keeps no record of your email, whether you send or receive it from Blackboard, right? So any email you receive from Blackboard Learn appears in your external email inbox. Keep a copy of important messages in case you need them at a later date. So Mara De Leon asks, can we forward BB emails to our UH Outlook? Emails sent from Blackboard will go to whatever email address you have on file in PeopleSoft. So I think all faculty have their UH Outlook as a default one. But students, students have whatever email client they use as their default, right? Because they don't have a UH central email inbox. You only get your Blackboard email within the BB email tool. I think, Mara, you're using the course messages tool, if I understand you correctly. Yeah. So so Blackboard email, like I said, only sends out to your personal email client that's on file with PeopleSoft. And so whenever you open the tool, you'll see this screen here, which will allow you to select which group you want your email to be sent to. So you can send it to all users, all groups. You can select certain user roles, like students, instructors, observers. And then you can select individual users or individual groups. Okay, so let's dive into that and take a look at that tool. So if you come to Tools, it'll be under Send Email. And you can see that menu item right here, right? So let's say I wanted to select single users. It looks very much like the course messages tool. I'd select certain users. I'm going to send this to Marcia again. Where are you? Oh, I guess she left the course. I'll send it to myself then. And I can just give it a title and a message text. I guess in email you can also attach a file, which you can't do with messages, so that's kind of nice. But then I will send it. Okay, so then if I go to my Outlook client, I get the email and it looks like this, right? So as I said, Blackboard doesn't keep that email internally, right? So once it's sent, it's gone from the Blackboard platform. The other thing I want to mention about the email tool, right, is if a student comes here and they click on, I think I need to show it. Where is it? Did I make it unavailable? There it is. So if a student comes here and they select send email, what do they get? they get whatever permissions you allow them to see. Okay, so this is important. I mention this because some professors have had issues with students in their course sending out emails from Blackboard to their peers, advocating or advertising for some service like note-taking service, or even more nefariously, test-taking services or whatever. So just be aware that if you use the email tool and you make it available to your students, they can send emails to other students in the class. Okay, so I just want to bring your attention to that in case you want to use that tool. So if you go back to tool availability, send email is the only one with a little bit more options. All right, so if I go over here, you can see which email settings do I want to make available to students. And you can see I've only have checked here select users, right? So that's just something to think about if you use the email tool. And the other thing that I discovered as well is there's also a global menu for Blackboard up here in the top right-hand corner. And if you open that, a student can open that too. They come down here to Tools. What do they find here? They find the Send Email tool, right? And if you've allowed students to use the email tool, then the course, they can come here and select the course and send an email from there. And I mention that again because even if you don't allow them to see the tool over here, they can get to it there as well. It's, in my opinion, it's a poor design on Blackboard's part, but it is what it is. So just be aware of that. I don't like to assume that students are up to something, but it's just helpful to have that in mind. So again, that's the email tool. Are there any questions before we go on between email or messages?
The email tool, for instance, in my class, I have groups, and I'm okay with them emailing each other within the group.
Yeah.
Okay, and I restrict that they only email within the group, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's done at the group level.
That's done at the group level. That's correct. So when you create the group, you can select which tools are available to them.
For the group, yeah.
Yeah, and so email is one of those tools.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, good question. Any other questions about email or messages? Okay, so let's move on to announcements. Announcements is probably one of my favorite tools in Blackboard because it's I kind of think of it as like a instructor's blog. You can post little short updates to the course, and Blackboard keeps a running history of all of those announcements, right? And the other benefit is if you want, when you create an announcement, you can send it out to students so that they receive it in their email as well. Again, whatever email they have on file with PeopleSoft. So I already have the announcements tool linked over here on the navigation. So I'm going to come here and create an announcement. And the announcement looks very similar to the email, right? So let's say I want to send a welcome message. And I'm just going to say hi. And I'm going to check this, send a copy of this announcement immediately, which means once I click submit, it'll send it to their email address on file. So when I click submit, you can see here there's my announcement in the course. And then when I come down here, where's my... I receive it also in my Outlook. And so if I want to create another announcement, let's say week 1 assignment due. And then I'm not going to send this as a copy out, but I just want you to see how Blackboard lists these. So it's nice to have a running list of all the announcements and updates you're sending to your students right there. And what I do is after the second week of the class, I change the landing page from the welcome page to the announcements page. So that way when students come into my course, the first thing they see is the announcement. The last thing I'll say about announcements is if you want to pin a certain announcement to the top that you think is really important, just drag it above this line, right? And that way, that'll be at the top. Yeah, so Shelly, that's a good question. She asks if students receive an email from Blackboard, can they reply from their external email? And as Marcia mentioned, yeah, once they reply, it'll go to your Outlook, or I'm sorry, your UH email address. So in other words, it doesn't go back to Blackboard.
Is there a way to sort this announcement by date? Or do you just have to manually do the...
So it's automatically sorted by date with the most recent one at the top. You can reorder them manually if you want, but I think that's the only option.
So once you reorder, if for any reason you put something at the very top, then you have to manually go back and sort it.
Right, and what Blackboard will do is if you send an announcement out after you've manually sorted it, it'll put the new announcement at the top. So that's how that works. Any other questions about announcements? Like I said, this is a really good tool, you know, to send a quick note to students about you know, new material available. Or what I personally do when I teach online is I send at the beginning of a week, I send an announcement with kind of like an overview of where we have been and then where we're headed the coming week, just to kind of make sure students are on the same page. I find that with online classes, you can never over communicate with students. The more, the better. Okay, so those are the basic instructor to student communication tools: messages, emails, and announcements. So next up, we'll cover tools that are primarily used to engage students in like collaborative or interactive activities. The most common one that's been used is the discussion board. So, you know, discussion board, you're probably familiar with these, you know, from your own experience with the internet. It's just a place where individuals can post messages around a certain topic. I wonder if this image is, no, it's not right there. And in the Blackboard discussion board, it's organized around 3 areas. Forums, which is the most broad area in the discussion board. And then a level down is what are called threads, which are individual topics within a forum. And then the smallest, most granular piece is the posts. And I had created a visual for this. Well, it's not showing that it's linked. Let's see if I can find it. Well, unfortunately, oh, that's not it. Oh, okay. Let me see if I can pull that up for you guys real quick, because I think it's just nice to help. Oh, I guess I don't have it here anymore. Okay. Well, I will send that out after the boot camp. So let's dive into a discussion board, right? So here is the discussion board tool area. And you'll notice that the first thing that you have to do in order to set up a discussion board is to create a forum. So a forum can be a topic, like, you know, let's call this one romanticism. Like, let's say we're teaching a literature course and this module is on romanticism. You can put your instructions for the discussion forum here. Again, you can choose to make it available or not, and then you can restrict it based on date. You can grade discussion forums. So if you want to do that, you have to click this button here, grade discussion forum, and then give it a set number of points. Most people choose 100, but that's up to you. You can have Blackboard show you that the participant needs to be graded after so many number of posts. So like, let's say you have an assignment where they have a discussion forum, they are required to post one original post and then comment on 2 peer posts. You would say, I want to needs grading after every 3 posts. That way you're only notified when students have completed the assignment. So once we set that up and click submit, Blackboard will create a column in the Grade Center for this discussion board. Okay, I misspelled that, but that's okay. So that's the forum, and you can have multiple forums here, as many as you want. But when you click into the forum, the student will need to create a thread. So let's say they want to talk about the author Shelley, and then here is my post. So when they do that, you'll see that I've created a thread, and there's the post, right? So if another student wants to come in here and reply to that, they will click reply, and if they're like my students, they'll say something really profound like, great job, I agree. And they'll click submit. So you can see that there's the post and there's the reply. So you can imagine if you have a course with, I don't know, 100 students, this forum would have around 100 threads with an original post and maybe 2, 3, or 4 replies to that post from other students. So you can also allow students to subscribe to a certain forum. And what this means is when they click subscribe, they will get an email whenever anybody posts to that forum. Which, if it's a graded forum, they probably don't want to subscribe to it. But what I like to do is create a forum for, like, you could call it whatever you want, a water cooler or something like, you know, this forum is for logistics and questions. All right, so this is a non-graded forum, and this could be something that they come to and post questions to the course as a whole. And what I find is a lot of times the students ask questions of each other. They answer the question before I even have to, right? So that would be something I would encourage students to subscribe to. That way, whenever one of their peers asks a question like, you know, when is this, that, or the other thing due, someone else can respond and have that question answered without having to bug you about it. So that's a very general overview of discussion board. Are there any particular questions about it? There's a lot more features that you can we can dig into.
Yes, we do have one question for you, Taylor.
Okay.
Can you set the forum so that the students must post before seeing other posts?
Yes, good question. So if you come here and edit the forum, under forum settings, you can select this button. Participants must create a thread in order to view other threads in the forum. So if you have a discussion board assignment that requires them to post their own response to a question and then critique to other students, they have to post theirs first before they can see other students' work. So hopefully that answers your questions. Allow post tagging. This one is kind of an unused feature, but I really like it kind of, because what it allows you to do is, as the instructor, it allows you to tag certain posts according to certain categories that you create. So like, let's say I turn that on and I go over to romanticism and I click here, and Marcia has posted something that I think is really excellent and I want to share with other students. I come here and I would say collect, and I would tag this text as must read. Okay, and then when I click OK, and I come back here to the forum, you can see that there's a tag here, right, under must read. And you can have multiple tags within a forum. But let's say I click here, and then I have all the posts that I think students should really pay attention to right there in one spot. So it kind of helps me as the instructor highlight what I think is a good post, and also what I think can be helpful for students, you know, as they're learning about the content or as they're reviewing the content for an exam or something. Students, however, cannot add tags to a post. I don't know why Blackboard didn't allow that, but that's how it's set up. So. Let's see if there's any other. We've talked about grades. Obviously, you can add a due date to a discussion forum. You can allow members to subscribe. you can force moderation of posts, which means you have to make them available before everyone else can see them. That might be kind of a pain, but maybe under certain circumstances, like if you're dealing with a really sensitive topic, you might want to enable that. And then if you want, you can also allow members to rate one another's posts. Kind of like a thumbs up or a thumbs down, Facebook style. So that's basically it for discussion boards. Again, this is one of the most commonly used, one of the most commonly used tools within Blackboard. I wrote this post a while back that I can send a link to. Just kind of a few ideas on how to help students in a discussion board. I have some concrete moves that students can make, when they're responding to another person's post. So ask for clarification or elaboration, highlight argumentative gaps, challenge a claim or give a counterexample, maybe draw out consequences of someone else's position. They could try and surface assumptions that other people are making, right? Like unconscious biases or whatever, and then maybe find analogies that they see in other areas or other disciplines, across their studies. So Jingwon says, can you set a thread post so that students must reply or comment to at least 3 other students in order to be graded? You can't do that specifically. You can only set number of posts, right? So if you set the form to be graded, you can only set it to say, after so many posts. And if they responded to only one other student, even though they responded to 4 posts, even though they posted 4 times, that'll show up. So there's no way to sort of break it out in terms of who they're responding to. Okay, well, let's move on then to what's next. Okay, journals. We'll do journals and blogs sort of at the same time because they're very similar tools. Does replying to a post count as a post? Yes. Okay, so journals and blogs are the same tool. The difference is journals are only viewable by the student who wrote the journal and the professor. No one else can see the journal entry. Blogs, on the other hand, are visible to everyone, right? So let's take a look here. In order to make a journal available, you'd have to create one, and this is how you do it. So let's jump in really quickly. So go down to Course Tools and then Journals. So I've already created some, but I'll create a new one just to show you how it's done. So I'm going to create a journal, and I'm going to create one that's called Reflection Exercises. I'm going to make it available. Index entries, that just means on the right side, how is it going to list them in the table of contents? And then you can, of course, add grading if you want. So we'll add grading, and then we will click submit. All right, so now what I want to do is come over here and add a tool link. Well, actually, cancel. I'm gonna do it differently over here. I'm gonna add it to this module 1. So I'm gonna link to a journal, the one I just created called Reflection Exercises. And then I'm gonna give the students instructions here. Please submit 1 reflection by Sunday night each week. Obviously, you'd want to be more detailed, but just for demonstration purposes. So yeah, so now when the student comes here, they click on this, and then they each have their own journal space where they can create a journal entry. It's very simple, you know, reflection number 1. Oops. Here's my thought, and then post entry. So that's what it looks like. And so as an instructor, I can come in here and read that and even comment on it and grade it, but no one else can see this. Right? So you can, so it turns out, I didn't know this, it turns out there's a lot of really excellent uses of journaling in higher education. I've wanted to put together something on that for a while now, but I haven't gotten time to. But there's a lot of research out there on how journaling is a really good way to increase students, you know, metacognition about their own learning journey in a course. I will say it's not a very commonly used tool within Blackboard. So blogs are going to look very much like a journal. But they're different in the sense, like I said earlier, that they're public to the course. So there's 3 types of blogs. There are course blogs, where only the faculty member can create a course blog and, you know, determine the topic to be addressed. All course members can add blog entries and comments to blog entries. So basically a course blog is a collective blog that is collaboratively written by all the users in the course, by all the members in the course, whether that's students, faculty, or TAs. Individual blogs, on the other hand, are blogs set up for individual users to create. So you can set up an individual blog called, I don't know, you know, biology lab, and have each student blog throughout the semester about that topic. And then other students can go into their peers' blog and see what they're writing about and comment on them and whatnot. And then the last one is group blogs. So if you have groups set up in your course, you can create blogs within the course, and only members of that group can add content to the blog. However, other students in the class can see the blog and leave comments on it. So hopefully that's clear. Let's dig into the blog tool. So you can see here, blogs looks very similar to the journal. So I'm going to create a blog. Let's see, let's call this July 2018. So you can see here, individual to all students or course blog. So in other words, do I want a collaboratively written blog or one set up a blog for each individual student? So I'm going to do a collaborative one, and I'm going to take off allow anonymous entries and comments, and click submit. So now when I come back to my module, I'm going to add the blog tool, and I'm going to link to my July 18th blog that I just created. Okay. So now if a student were to come here, they would see the blog, and, you know, whoever writes on this blog, whatever, it'll be public to the entire course. So this is what an entry looks like. And I can come here and I can submit a comment. And so, you know, there's a thread here for comments. So it's kind of a cool thing, you know, if you could imagine, like, you know, say you had an assignment, or like the blog was part of a student's participation grade, and you had to post, I don't know, 3 blog posts throughout the semester. It might be another way to kind of generate some discussion around different topics throughout the semester that otherwise wouldn't be, you know, talked about. So, so that's the blog. And again, this is a collaborative one. You can also have individual ones and group blogs as well. All right, and then the last tool I'm going to cover today is called a course wiki, which is a collaborative space within the course where students can view, contribute, and edit content. Most of you are probably familiar with Wikipedia. It's the same kind of idea. The only difference, which is a big one, is students cannot simultaneously edit the wiki, which is a kind of a bummer, because we're all used to, say, a Google document or an Office 365 document where we can synchronously edit a you know, a PowerPoint or a you know, Word document or whatever. That's one of the biggest limitations with the wiki. However, it is nice because it does keep track of how much each student participates to the wiki, right? So if you come in here and look at some content, let's see, you can see who, let's see here, oops. Well, at least when grading, you can, yeah, you can come, that's right, you can come in here and see the history. So you can see what each student added there. And it also does break down, you know, by percentage as well when you're grading them. And you can compare the versions. Oops, you have to select them. And then you can compare the versions. So you could have a wiki assignment that said, you know, you have to create a encyclopedia entry on a certain topic or a certain concept, break students off into groups, and then have them each be responsible for so much of it. And, you know, if you were to edit it as a student, it would just look like this, which is a basic text editor. And you can add images, you know, links, whatever you want, videos, and have a nice kind of wiki entry. And then you can grade students based on their participation in it. And so within each wiki, you can have multiple pages as well, if you want. So Jim asks, can you do a video blog? Can you explain a little bit more about what you mean by that?
It would be great if a student can video record themselves through their mobile phone and upload it to the blog area so that everybody can see what they're talking about.
I agree. That's a good idea. In theory, it's possible, but I don't think it's as simple as the way you're describing it. The reason I say that is because I'm not sure if within the mobile app, you're able to upload files from your phone, if that makes sense. So that's something I have to look into. I will, however, say that there is an excellent tool called Flipgrid that I can point you to real quick. And it's flipgrid.com. It allows you to post a question and then have students submit video responses. And they show up on a kind of Flipgrid page. So for instance, this is a Flipgrid that I created. So I set up a, let me see if I can go to the actual grid. Yeah, here we go. Oh, it's locked. What is the password? All right, so this is what, oops. Okay, well, I guess it's locked. But anyway, you can have students submit videos just from their phone. It's great, and it's super easy to use. It's like, I had this one, and all these students submitted videos. So you can see here, this student submitted a video, and then I can give comments and feedback, and I can even add a private video response. If I want, I can feature this student's video. So, and that can easily be embedded into Blackboard, right? So if I want to grab the embed code, I can come over to Blackboard, and under my content area, let's say I want to put it in module 1, I can create an item and add it. So when I come down here, I have to unlock it. I don't know how I do that, but well, I have to figure out how to do that. But basically, if it's not locked, you can see it there, and students can add their video. And it's pretty nice. So that was a bit of a roundabout answer, but yeah, so you can do that. It's recently acquired by Microsoft. So you now have a free, like if you log in with your UH CougarNet account, it's linked to your Office 365. So if you go to office.com and log in, once you set up Flipgrid, it's down here in your Microsoft apps, right? So kind of cool. So anyway, oh, how long can the videos be? I think videos for students are 90 seconds, if I'm not mistaken. I want to use this for video presentations. I want students to create and have students respond to instead of in-class presentations. So it might be the case that with the new acquisition by Microsoft, the videos can be longer, but I don't think it's something that's meant for like a full-on presentation. However, what you could do is, and this is getting really off topic, but whenever you create a topic, you can link to, say, a YouTube video or something, and then students can watch that and then respond on Flipgrid. So that might be one way around it. But Joyce, if you want to get with me after this, then we can talk about different options for that. Okay, and then okay, so back to Blackboard. That's basically the overview that I wanted to cover today. But we have a good amount of time. We have about 15 minutes left for, some questions and answers. If you guys wanted to go more in depth to a certain area, I'm happy to do that. Oh, I know. One thing that I was going to cover was adaptive release. So why don't we dive into that real quick? Let me go back to my module 1, learning module. Okay, so this is a learning module, and I think Jim had asked me earlier if I can set up a adaptive release for content further in the module. So the answer to that is yes. So first of all, I'd have to set up a test, and I already have a test created here, so let me use that one. And let's make the link available and click submit. Okay, so now I have this test here. And what I want to do is I want to restrict content 2 and 3 based on the student's score on this test. So I'm going to come here and I'm going to select adaptive release. And there's 3 categories you can use for adaptive release: date, membership, and grade. And so I'm going to select grade. So the grade column I'm going to use, there's a lot of them. What was the test I used? It was check your knowledge. Okay. So you can do user has at least 1 attempt for this item. I'm going to do score is greater than or equal to 80%. All right, so then I'll click submit. And I'm going to want to do the same for this one. Yeah, you can also do absolute values as well, or ranges. All right, so now when I come here, you can see that as a student, the only thing I see is learning module 1 and this check your knowledge quiz, right? So in order to get to the second and third item, I'd have to take this test, which I'm not going to take right now, but but basically, unless I get an 80 or above, I'm not going to ever be able to see those items. If I were to do that, then I would give students multiple attempts, right? So that they can eventually get to the content. You can set it up to you want them eventually to get to the content, is what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry, I'm reading the chat as well. Yeah, Jim, you are correct. So yeah, so I think Jim is correct. If you're setting up the module based on enforced sequential viewing, you would only have to set up adaptive release on this second item and not this one. That's right. So adaptive release doesn't have to be used in a learning module. It can be used anywhere, right? So I can set up an adaptive release on entire folders. A lot of people use this to set up their learning modules so that they'll be released after a certain date, right? So I can display this after, let's say, the second week of classes, which would be August 26th, I believe. So I want this to be released Monday, August 27th at midnight. Yeah. So students can't see that content until that date is reached.
Taylor, can you also talk about tracking? Because one person asked the question, if they upload reading material, is it possible for me to see when students access them?
Yes. So let's go here and let's say I want to upload a file. Let's see. Go to my OneDrive teaching. So let's say I want this handout. Upload it. Track number of views is what you would have to enable in order to see those. Marcia, are you in the course and you can go and click on that?
Okay, let me go now.
Okay, so you can see here it says statistics tracking is turned on. And I'll give Marcia a minute. So whenever you want to check on what students have viewed that, you would select the drop down and then view statistics report. And then you have to run it. There's different formats you can view. You can select the date range, and let's say 15. Oh, whoops. What's today? The 17th. 15th. Let's say that, and then I'm going to select these two users and click submit. So you can see here. It's pretty detailed data. I don't think it caught what she did because she had just done it. But in any case, this is where you would be able to see what students have viewed your content. So, and you can download the report, you can run a new one, and you can save it. The other thing you can do is under evaluation. There's a lot of course reports you can run as well, right? So, you know, Blackboard is essentially a large database. So you can query a ton of different things, data points here if you want. So all activity, course activity, you can set up different performance metrics that you want to measure. You can see user activity in forums, how they're doing in groups, a lot of things. And then you can also, if you want, I haven't used this too much, but you can set up Retention Center, which is kind of like a dashboard for you to track student success. So in the Retention Center, you can, let's see here, customize. It's loading. And so here are the default rules, right, that Blackboard has in set up. So basically, these are different thresholds that you can set for students to get flagged as needing help, right? So the activity rule, for instance, define criteria. User activity in last 1 week is 20% below average, right? So you can adjust this threshold. Like, let's say I want it to be 60% below average, which is a little bit of a lower threshold than before. So any student who's, you know, doesn't have as much activity is going to get flagged there. And if I go back here, what it looks like when a student is flagged is they show up on this risk table. And if you click on a student, you can see their risk factors, and then you can notify that student from right within Blackboard. So it's a little big brotherish, but you know, if you want to keep tabs on your students, that's one way to do it.
Okay, and just one more question, Taylor. Someone mentioned about loading students. They don't see their students, and I explained that it usually about 3 days before classes start. But is it any way that you can talk on hiding content when they're not ready? Like if you see your content area number 2 that's empty, that you can actually hide the link from the students so they wouldn't click on it wondering if they're not seeing something.
Yeah, so if you're developing content in Blackboard and your students are in the course already, then you can, if it's a link over here, you can just come here and say hide link. And then you'll see that little square with the line on it right here. So that means the link is hidden. This means there's no content in that area. But you can also hide content on an individual basis, right? So like, let's say I don't want this Flipgrid to be shown. I can come here, click edit, and select permit users to view this content, no, and then click submit. So now when I turn the edit mode off, students won't see it, but I can still make changes to it as the instructor. The other thing I wanted to mention too, which I find really helpful, is in the Grade Center, which Marsha's going to cover in full detail on Thursday. But in the Grade Center, you can send emails to your students as well. And what I like about this is that you can sort the Grade Center by any column. Okay, so for For instance, let's say I want to sort by last access, because especially for online courses, students who are not accessing the course on a frequent basis is a red flag to me, right? So I can come here and click all the students who have not entered the course in the Grade Center, and then email selected users. So, you know, I can send them a strongly worded message and say, hey, look, in order to be successful for this course, you need to enter the course on a regular basis, you know, participate in the assignments and whatnot. And that way they'll get an email to their outside email inbox, and then I'll get a copy of it to my UH email account. You can also do this, you know, I mean, not just access, but like, let's say you have an assignment and students haven't submitted something yet. You can sort that way and email those students, say, hey, look, the assignment's due in so many hours, you need to submit it. Or let's say they did poorly on an assignment, you can sort of, you know, students who did worst to best, and then email this, you know, like the people who failed, say, look, we need to meet because this grade isn't going to be acceptable. So I mentioned that because I think it's a really nice tool within the Grade Center to use. Okay, any other questions? Marcia, did I miss anything?
No, I'm just checking the chat now. I think they want to know how do they view the stats. I think you went over it. I don't know if you need to go over it again. And I think someone's asking about video lectures.
Okay, so let's talk about video lectures first. So Joyce, you asked what's the best way to do video lectures. Are you talking about classroom lectures that are recorded live in front of a group of students, or are you talking about like lectures you record in your office?
Lectures I record in my office.
Okay. Yeah, so the software I suggest to most people is called Snagit. That's a great one to use, or Screencast-O-Matic, and I can show you those. So this is a Screencast-O-Matic. It's a very user-friendly software to do like screencasts and things like that, video lectures. Snagit is the other one.
Oh.
This one is from TechSmith. And they're both very affordable. So I think Snagit's like $20 or something. With the education, you need to go to the education section. Okay, so it's $30. And then this one is $1.50 a month, so kind of the same. They're both around $25 to $29. So that's what I would. I mean, that's what I do for my courses. Is I just record a video screencast and save it, and I upload mine to Vimeo. You can also use YouTube, or if you don't want to go outside the university, we can set you up with a CASA account, and you can upload your videos there. And then you would just link to them in Blackboard using the web link function. Does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you, Taylor.
Yeah, and if you have any further questions about like best practices or whatever, I can send you some resources on that. And then let's go back to,
Yes.
what is it? Track number of views.
Yeah, track number of views, viewing those stats. I haven't been able to get an answer on that.
Okay, can you just voice your question again?
Yeah, tracking number of views. So if I have, say, documents or anything, any kind of course material created when I've checked track number of views,
Uh-huh.
I
Well,
don't know if I can actually see those stats.
yeah, so you have to go, so this is the one that I turned it on for, right?
Uh-huh.
And I go here and I say view statistics report, right?
So will I see that for all of them or just the one?
Just the one that's turned on.
If I have 5 or 6 of them turned on, when I go to this page, does it show all of them?
No, it just shows this one for this particular document.
So if I have, say, 6 or 7 different documents and I enable all of them, is there a page that has a summary of all of them? Or
If you wanted to get a more global view of what's activities happening in your course, then you would need to use the course report tool, which is under evaluation over here. Course reports. So you can do this one would probably be the best one for you. All user activity inside content areas. And let's just say I'd want to select all, and then I'd run it. See what that looks like. So this is my so this is the different content areas I have, right? You can see like my example content 2 area, example content area, okay, whatever. Number of hits, percentage, so you can kind of get a sense of where students are spending their time. And then when you come down here, you can see where each individual student that you selected is going, right? But now that I look at this, it's not telling me which documents individually are getting looked at, just the content areas. So I'd have to like search around a little bit and see if I can get a report that shows me which specific, like which, or how many hits each specific document is getting, right? Because this one just has these content areas.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for.
But this could also be pretty helpful too, you know, just to get a sense of, okay, where am I reaching students? Where are they spending most of their time? That kind of thing. So yeah, I would, if I were you, I would just kind of play around with these reports, kind of hit, you know, until you get something that is really helpful for you. Some can be overwhelming, you know, but there's a lot in there. Is that helpful or?
Yeah, I would like to try to find something that's going to show those individual items as well. But yeah, that does help too.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a way to like run a report on documents and then select the different documents that you want and have them all in one report. I've never seen that. That's not to say it can't happen, but I just would need to research that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who would I follow up on that with?
You can email me directly.
Okay.
I can put my email here if you want to copy that. Oh wait, I think I sent it privately. So it's after 12, so I want to just wrap things up really quick. Thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate your attendance, and you can always feel free to reach out to us if you need more help. Our office email address is fdis@uh.edu. So it's best to email that one because if I'm not in, then someone else in the office can help you out. But keep in touch and let us know how your courses are developing, and if you need help with course design or any different educational technology, then feel free to reach out. So hopefully you can join us Thursday, and if not, we will see you around. Thanks so much.